Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're tackling, well, it seems like a small detail in getting products to you, but it actually has some pretty big implications. Especially, with online shopping, we're going deep into Gap Inc.'s rules for packing garments. And we're basing this on their drop test document.
That's right. And our mission really is to get why this specific test, looking at poly bags, how things are folded, why it's so vital now in the e-commerce age. It's all about making sure you have a good experience when that parcel arrives and avoiding unnecessary costs further up the chain.
Okay, so let's unpack this drop test. The heart of it is checking if folded clothes slide around inside those online poly bags they ship in. Why is that movement such a big deal?
Well, think about how your online orders get handled. This test is specifically set up to mimic what automated warehouse equipment does. Picture robotic arms grabbing these bags. If the garment shifts too easily inside, it's much more likely to show up wrinkled, maybe looking a bit messy.
Ah,
And this really reflects a bigger thing in logistics. Now packaging has to stand up to machines, not just people maybe dropping it.
so it's not just surviving the trip to your house, it's also about being tough enough for the automated stuff happening inside the fulfillment centers. And like the document says, it really comes down to customer satisfaction, that feeling when you open the box and everything looks, well, perfect.
Absolutely. That first impression when you open something, it matters. A well-presented item feels, more valuable. Now, let's be clear about when this drop test is actually required. It's not for everything, is it?
Correct. Yeah, it's mandatory for orders shipping via their online channels, which makes total sense. And it's also required for something they call fungible inventory. What exactly does fungible mean here?
So fungible basically means stock that's, let's say, versatile. It can be used for the regular store orders or for individual online orders. Helps streamline things. The document also mentions, interestingly, that while the full test isn't mandatory for normal retail orders, like bulk shipments to stores, there's still a guideline if they use individual poly bags.
Right, I saw that. And that guideline is about the bag size, isn't it? The folded edge of the garment has to be within 2 inches or 5 centimeters of the bag's edge. Why bother with that for retail if the main drop test isn't needed there?
Well, if you think about the bigger picture efficiency, how the brand looks, it seems like it's about keeping a baseline quality across the board. Even for stuff ending up in a store, a huge sloppy poly bag uses extra material and the garment might shift and just not look as good on the shelf. It feels like a proactive standard.
Okay, that makes sense. So we've got the why and the when. Let's dive into the how. How do they actually do this test correctly? And what are they trying to avoid in terms of handling?
Right. The document is quite specific. There are 2 correct ways to lift the online poly bag for the test. 1. Use both hands, grabbing the top 2 corners. 2. Use one hand, but grab it right in the center of the top edge. Both of these are meant to mimic, controlled, balanced ways a package would likely be handled.
In transit or by the machines?
Okay.
And what's the wrong way? What shouldn't be done?
Yeah, they really emphasize not just grabbing one top corner with one hand, because that makes the whole package tilt quite a lot. And the document says that's just not how things are typically handled, especially by automated systems. They need to see how the garment holds up under more stable lifting.
Right. Test for the conditions it'll actually face. Makes sense. So, okay, they lift the bag correctly. Then what? How do they decide if it passes or fails?
It's pretty straightforward, actually. A pass means the garment either doesn't slide at all, or if it does move a little when lifted correctly, that movement is less than 1 inch, which is about 2.5 centimeters.
Okay, less than an inch. And a fail.
A fail is if the garment slides or sort of drops noticeably inside the bag, or if that slide is more than the 1-inch limit. It's a clear line. And importantly, the document immediately links a fail to potential costs for the supplier.
Ah, yes. The consequences. If something fails this drop test, what does the factory have to do?
Yeah, this really touches on quality control, doesn't it? And fixing things. The document lays out a kind of 3-step approach if a test fails. First thing to try, redesign the folding method. They actually call it the online folding method. The goal is just to get a tighter, more compact fold so there's less room for it to move inside the bag.
Okay, step 1, fold it better. What if that doesn't cut it?
Then the next step is to look at the bag itself. Can they use a smaller online poly bag? The idea here is a snugger fit, less airspace. That's the term they use for the empty space inside. Less empty space just means less room for the garment to shift around. Pretty logical.
Reduce the void. Makes sense. And the third option, if tweaking the fold and the bag size still doesn't work.
The last resort, really, is using what they call a chipboard stiffener. It's basically a thin sheet of white cardboard or something similar slipped in to give more stability. But, and this is important, they stress this is only okay if the first two fixes didn't work. And you need prior written approval from their packing team.
So it's an exception.
Exactly. It's called an approved exclusion.
Yeah.
And it's specifically for those cases where things still slide even with the right online fold and bag.
Got it. Last resort, needs sign-off. Okay, let's connect this back to the money side for suppliers, the chargebacks. How does failing the drop test actually lead to those penalties?
Yeah, the link is very direct. Failing the drop test, that can definitely result in a chargeback, usually under categories like excess or unapproved packing material or maybe folding compliance problems. They even give a specific example. Excess polybag garment slides to the bottom. That's a chargeback issue, plain and simple.
Wow. So that $200 plus per carton penalty isn't just like a fine. It's a real push for suppliers to get this right up front. Shows how these little packaging details really hit the bottom line, especially with so much e-commerce volume.
Absolutely. It highlights the need for robust quality control from the start.
And what are some reasons this excess polybag problem might happen in the first place? Why would it lead to a chargeback?
Well, a couple of possibilities. Maybe the garment itself is just wider than the bag they chose. Or maybe the factory used a bigger bag than needed, but didn't adjust the folding to kind of fill that extra space properly. Didn't stop the movement. It all comes back to getting that fit right, you see.
The relationship between the folded item and the bag dimensions.
Right.
Now,
Yeah.
you mentioned the cost. What is the actual chargeback amount they list?
This is where it gets very concrete. The document states the chargeback is $200 per DPO, that's defect per opportunity, plus $1.25 per carton. That really gives you a tangible sense of the financial risk involved if you don't comply.
Wow. Okay, that definitely underlines why getting this right matters. So, with all these rules and potential penalties, what are the factories or the vendors' main responsibilities here?
The document is clear. The factory's PPIC, Department Production Planning and Inventory Control, they're the ones who have to do the drop test. Specifically, when they're confirming their online folding method. That's their first checkpoint for compliance.
And once they've done the test and let's say it passes, is that it? Job done.
Not quite. There's one more crucial step. After a successful test, the factory must submit their folding method application, along with those passing results, to the packing team. They need to get formal approval. It's a really important proactive step.
And why is getting that formal approval so critical for the factory?
Well, getting that sign-off basically acts as a safety net for the factory. It helps them avoid potential chargebacks later on for these kinds of packaging issues. And it gives them documented proof of the agreed-upon method. Super useful if there's ever a disagreement or a question down the line. It just sets clear expectations.
Establishes that alignment with Gap Inc.'s standard.
Got it. Okay, we've covered a lot of ground, lots of specific terms. Maybe we should quickly recap the key ones just to make sure we're all clear.
Good idea. Yeah, quick review. Online order, that's shipped direct to you, the consumer. Individual polybag, one bag, one garment, not bulk. Online folding method, that specific, approved way to fold for online orders. Chipboard stiffener, the optional cardboard support, needs that prior approval. Packing team, the Gap Inc. department overseeing and approving all this. And chargeback, sometimes called expense recovery. That's the financial penalty for not following the rules.
Right.
Understanding those terms is pretty fundamental here. And, if there's ever any doubt about what these mean or how they apply in a specific situation, the document implies, and it's just good practice anyway, to check directly with Gap Inc.'s quality control or packing team. Always best to be sure. Absolutely. Great summary. So, wrapping up this deep dive on Gap Inc.'s drop test, it's really clear this isn't just some minor check. It's a critical quality control step. It's designed to make sure garments, especially for online orders, are protected properly all the way to the customer, which directly affects, customer happiness, but also potentially the supplier's costs because of those chargebacks.
Exactly. It really shows how paying close attention to seemingly small details in logistics can have pretty big ripple effects. For the customer experience, yes, but also for how efficiently the whole operation runs.
Yeah. And it makes you wonder, doesn't it, thinking about how complex modern supply chains are,
Right.
what other little details, things we might not even think about, could have a surprisingly big impact on getting a product from the factory all the way into our hands. Definitely something to ponder beyond just the obvious stuff.